Trump and the courts are on a 2024 election collision course. Two courtroom dramas 700 miles apart, arising from Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the last election, conjure a preview of the most tortured campaign season of modern times next year. In Washington, D.C., a federal judge set a trial date for the former president's federal election subversion case for March 4, a day before the Super Tuesday primaries that will hand out a huge portion of the delegates Trump needs to win the GOP nomination. Currently the front-runner for the GOP nomination, Trump has already pleaded not guilty in a case he's slammed as 2024 election interference. But Judge Tanya Chutkan's decision increased the possibility that the Republican Party will nominate a convicted felon. While the country was getting its head around that previously unthinkable scenario, Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was on the stand in Georgia in a risky attempt to extricate himself from a separate state racketeering case in which he is charged along with Trump and 17 co-defendants with attempting to steal victory in the 2020 battleground. Meadows wants to move his case to federal court, where he may have a better chance of having it dismissed. Meadows is not the first White House chief of staff to be charged with a crime. Richard Nixon henchman H.R. Haldeman went to jail for conspiracy, obstruction, and perjury. But Trump's Oval Office gatekeeper's ordeal occurred in the first major courtroom battle, following Trump's 4 indictments. Monday offered the first chance for prosecutors in any of the cases against Trump to preview evidence in court that could potentially convict him. At any time, the spectacle of a White House chief of staff being cross-examined, albeit in an evidential hearing, would have helped define a political era. In the exhausting, logic-defying Trump epoch, it may not even have been the day's most significant event. The ex-president's political method has always been to flood the zone with so much chaos that the nation is numbed by his behavior. In office, this gave him room to escalate his aberrations. As a criminal defendant, legal theatrics from him and his allies have tended to blur the significance of each development. But even by Trump's standards, Monday was a doozy. Trump's flurry of indictments made the collision of his legal nightmare and his presidential campaign inevitable. Every subsequent legal move will show just how destabilizing this process will be, and raises the likelihood that yet another U.S. election will be swamped by legal controversy, following Hillary Clinton's email saga in 2016 and Trump's election fraud lies in 2020. The damage wrought to Americans' faith in free, fair U.S. elections and confidence in law enforcement and judicial institutions was already grave. But the impact of multiple criminal trials targeting a potential major party nominee and possible next president could be impossible to calculate and is sure to weigh over the next administration, whoever wins. Given that Trump had sought to push the federal election subversion trial into 2026, Chutkan's decision to set it for March 4 was a significant defeat. The former president seemed to hope that he'd be back in the Oval Office by the time of a trial, in enough time to appoint an attorney general who could prevent the case from ever reaching court. Trump could theoretically seek to pardon himself in the federal case if he is convicted by a jury and then is elected president. In yet another stunning possibility, voters might have to consider next year. The selection of the March 4 date is certain to fuel new warnings from Republicans that its proximity to Super Tuesday cannot be a coincidence, and that it is proof of political chicanery. For all the noise, however, Chutkan is showing every sign of operating according to a judicial calendar, and not a political one. She, for example, warned Trump's defense team that his personal or professional interests, implicitly his political career, could not take precedence over the trial, and showed that she wants to push proceedings along with reasonable speed. Even if she ruled that special counsel Jack Smith's request for a trial beginning in January was too soon, the opening signal she sent here is that she's serious. She thinks the case, while historically important, is not terribly complex, and can be tried next March. Tom Dupree, a former senior Justice Department official in the George W. Bush administration, told CNN's Jake Tapper on Monday, the timing increases the chances that before going to the polls in November 2024, Americans will have a full understanding of the implications of at least one of the trials looking into Trump's attempt to destroy America's tradition of transferring power from one president to the next. In that sense, a trial that begins in March would have a civic purpose and could be vital to U.S. democracy. Former New Jersey Gov. Chris Christie,